Few years ago, I decided to escape the daily grind. I was 34, a data analyst stuck in an office every day. I thought a weekend camping trip with old friends in Pine Hill National Park would help me unplug. I had good memories of this place from childhood. It was peaceful, surrounded by tall trees and the sound of a river nearby. At first, everything felt just right. That first night, we sat around the campfire. It was dark and quiet, except for our laughter. But then I heard something else. Faint laughter echoed through the trees. I thought it was just us, maybe an echo, but it felt off. I looked around. We were alone. A chill ran down my spine. The next day, things went missing. First, it was my flashlight. I searched everywhere for it. Then it was the first aid kit. I asked the guys if they had seen them, but they hadn't. I felt uneasy. Then I found strange markings on the trees nearby. They looked like nothing I had ever seen. My stomach sank. As evening approached, that laughter returned. It wasn't just laughter, it grew darker, almost sinister. Part of me wondered if I was imagining it. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. On the last night, we decided to stay up late. We thought we could confront whatever was out there. In hindsight, that was a mistake. The fire dimmed, and the laughter echoed again. It sounded frantic, like it was mocking us. My heart raced. I felt cold, deep cold that seeped into my bones. It wasn't just the temperature. I asked my friends if they heard it. They nodded but looked uneasy. I wanted to leave. Staying felt wrong. The laughter stopped, and for a moment, silence fell over us. Then one friend stood up. I don't remember his name anymore. He stared into the darkness, eyes wide. I thought he was joking, but he didn't move. He seemed frozen, waiting for something. I wanted to say something, but my throat felt tight. Suddenly he shouted, "What do you want?" His voice cut through the night. At that moment, I felt like something answered back. It was a low rumble, almost a growl. We all realized we weren't alone. I grabbed my phone, but it was dead. The others started scrambling for their gear. Everything felt chaotic. I just wanted to leave. Then we heard that laughter again, close and all around us. I turned to see my friend still staring at something behind me. I asked what he saw, but he just stood there, mouth slightly open. I looked back. Nobody was there. Just trees and darkness. What happened that weekend still puzzles me. I think about it often. Did we disturb something in those woods, or was it all in our heads? I don't know. But maybe I don't want to find out. When we finally decided to leave, panic surged through us. The laughter faded, but the heavy silence felt even more foreboding. Carrying my gear, I glanced back at the campsite. It looked normal now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was anything but. We stumbled through the trees, trying to find a familiar path. The shadows seemed to twist and stretch, making the forest appear like a maze of nightmares. I wanted to call out to my friends, but my voice felt trapped inside. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the car. I nearly fell into the back seat, fumbling for the door handle. I watched as my friends piled in, their faces pale. The air felt thick with unspoken words. Just as we were about to drive away, my friend who had been staring into the darkness froze again. "What if it follows us?" he whispered, his eyes darting back toward the trees. That thought sent a jolt through me. I turned toward the woods, squinting into the darkness. But I didn't see anything, just trees and shadows. I shook my head, trying to push the fear aside. We're just being ridiculous. But deep down, I wasn't convinced. As we drove out of the park, the radio suddenly turned on, blasting static. We all jumped, but no one had touched it. I reached for the dial, turning it off, but it flickered back to life again, loud and crackling. "Stop messing with it," someone said, their voice shaky. The atmosphere in the car shifted. "I'm not," I said. I could feel everyone's fear radiating in the cramped space. With shaking hands, I twisted the knob again. This time, it went silent. We drove in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts. The trees seemed to close in around the road, a dark curtain slipping past our windows. I stole glances at my friends. They all looked dazed, haunted. The drive back felt like an escape, but unease lingered. I kept replaying that night in my head. My friend's face, the laughter, the growl. Had something truly been out there? Did we provoke it? 2 weeks later, I finally decided to go back. I thought it would help ease my mind. I gathered my gear again, even if my friends refused to join. I knew I had to face whatever it was that haunted those woods, if only to convince myself that I wasn't losing my mind. As I parked near the old campsite, the familiar sense of dread washed over me. The trees towered over me, silent sentinels watching my every move. I felt like a trespasser. Who was I to disturb this place again? But I pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. I set up my tent again just like the last time, forcing myself to believe I could control this situation. But there was an anxiety gnawing at me. That night I sat by the fire, recalling everything that had happened. I felt eyes on me. Was it just the rustling leaves, or was something out there? I looked around. That's when I saw it, a figure at the tree line. It was watching, still and quiet. My heart raced. I couldn't just sit here, I needed to know what it wanted. I took a deep breath, staring at the figure. It was too far away to see clearly, yet I could feel its gaze like a weight on my chest. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but curiosity rooted me to the spot. "Show yourself," I called out, my voice shaky. The woods swallowed my words. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the figure shifted, gliding just beyond the trees. I squinted, trying to catch any hint of its shape. There was something unnatural about the way it moved, almost fluid. It was as if it were part of the dark. I nearly jumped when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message. "Get out of there, now." I frowned, my stomach twisting. Who sent that? I looked around, but the forest felt even more oppressive. The whispers of the wind sounded different, like voices warning me. I stood up and grabbed my flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, though my voice quivered. My heart raced, and my mind swirled with doubt. Should I really have come back? What was out there? As I turned toward the direction of the figure, it was gone, disappeared as if it had never been there. I glanced back at the fire. The flames danced quietly, but I felt an odd tension in the air. I realized I had left my backpack with my supplies, water, food, perhaps some comfort items, back in the tent. I overthought the risk. Yet my gut told me I needed to circle back. I hesitated, peering into the darkness where the figure had vanished. My legs moved of their own accord as I made my way towards the tent. Each snap of a twig underfoot amplified the quiet, reminding me I was alone. I reached the tent and fished out my bag, but as I turned to head back, a cold shiver ran down my spine. The air had changed. It felt heavier, charged. I felt watched again. Ignoring my instincts, I gripped the bag tight and took a deep breath. Suddenly a sound shattered the silence, a low growl, deep and menacing, echoing from the woods. My pulse quickened. It was unlike the one I heard on the last trip. Closer, more menacing. I froze, every hair on my body standing on edge. Then I saw it, two glowing eyes emerging from the darkness, locking onto me. I dropped my bag and bolted back towards the fire, panic accelerating my movements. The growl turned into a low rumble that vibrated in my chest. I reached the flickering flames, the harsh light offering a sense of safety. But it didn't last. I turned to look back at the woods. The eyes were closer now, almost humanoid, and then the figure stepped forward. It was tall and lanky, twisted, almost like it was pieced together from the shadows. I stumbled back, dragging my gaze away from it. I felt the heat of the fire on my face, but it did nothing to calm my racing heart. I needed to get out. I had to leave before whatever that was came closer. I grabbed my gear, my eyes darting between the firelight and the forest. The figure watched, unmoving. As I turned to leave, a voice pierced the night, whispering my name. It was soft, luring, almost familiar. It called out to me, and I hesitated, a battle raging within. Who was calling? Did it want me to stay, or was it trying to fool me? I felt paralyzed. I had to make a choice, and fast. I broke away from the voice just in time. My legs propelled me backward, away from the firelight, and I stumbled over my own feet in a rush to escape. The growl followed, wrapping around me, swallowing the sounds of the forest. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Adrenaline coursed through me as I dashed towards the path leading out of the campsite. My heart thudded, drowning out all else. I needed to make it back to the car. The thought of being trapped out here alone filled me with dread. The darkness clawed at me as I stumbled past the tent. Leaves crunched beneath my weight, and every rustle transported me back to that unsettling figure. I shined my flashlight ahead, the beam cutting through the thick blackness. Shadows darted away at the edges of my vision, but when I flicked my light towards them, they weren't there. Just when I thought I was far enough from the fire, the growl erupted again, even louder this time. I skidded to a halt, turning my flashlight towards the sound. My palms were slick as I gripped the handle. Sweat trickled down my back. That's when I noticed it. A glimmer on the ground near the edge of the fire's radius. My curiosity tugged at me. I took a step closer, heart racing. It looked like a small object, reflecting the faint light. Before I consciously made the decision, I found myself bending down to pick it up. It was a pendant. A simple chain necklace with a smooth stone, oddly warm to the touch. I turned it over in my fingers, scanning the intricate designs carved into the stone. There was a strange familiarity to it, but I couldn't place where I'd seen it before. The growl rumbled again behind me, and it was closer this time. Instinct kicked in, and I shoved the pendant into my pocket before breaking into a sprint down the path. The shadows flickered again, but I couldn't stop to wonder. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to flee, yet as I navigated around the ancient trees, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was hunting me. The forest was alive in a way I couldn't understand, the branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Then I heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate, crashing through the brush. I scaled an incline, breathless and desperate. The path was narrowing, and I feared I would soon come to a dead end. I couldn't think about what was chasing me. The pounding footsteps grew closer, echoing in my ears, and just as I reached the top of the slope, everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died in my grip, plunging me into shadows. I fumbled with the switch, panic rising as I felt my pulse thundering in my ears. In that instant, I was engulfed by silence. I was alone, completely surrounded by darkness. A chill slithered down my spine, and I felt the cold breath of whoever or whatever was behind me. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. Then I felt it, a breath hot against my neck. I turned slowly, eyes wide, heart racing. There, just inches away, stood the tall, shadowy figure I had seen earlier. My breath caught in my throat as I faced the shadowy figure. It stood still, just as I had seen it before, but this time I could see more details. Long limbs that seemed to blend with the darkness around it, and a face obscured by shadows. Fear gripped me, a real physical weight that made it difficult to move. I blinked, hoping it would disappear like a bad dream. Instead, the figure leaned closer, and I could make out something glinting in its hand. My instincts kicked in, and I bolted to the side, crashing through the underbrush, desperate to put as much distance between us as I could. The footfalls behind me resumed, pounding against the earth in furious pursuit. My feet slipped against the damp ground as I raced down another incline. I could hear the rustle of branches and leaves, each sound amplified in my fear. The woods echoed with the phantom growl, now a constant companion in my flight. I had to find my way back to the campsite, or at least to some kind of refuge. But the darkness was unrelenting. I felt a wall of trees closing in on me, sharp branches pulling at my clothes and skin. I stumbled, falling to my knees. Pain shot through my palms as I braced myself against the rough ground. Breathless and panicking, I scrambled to get up, but something stopped me. A soft whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Help me." I froze, pulse racing. My heart hammered in my chest as I tried to make sense of the sound. Was it real or some trick of my mind? I scanned the surroundings, flashlight useless, and the shadows danced like wraiths. The whisper echoed again, clearer this time. "Help me." The voice was haunting, filled with desperation. It pulled at me. I glanced back, searching for the figure, but I saw only darkness. Suddenly I felt a pang of guilt. Was someone in trouble? Maybe it was all connected. The figure, the whispers, the pendant. I hesitated, torn between instinct and compassion. Then I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Something shifted through the trees. It was blurred but unmistakable. A form, smaller than the figure I'd seen before. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I had to help. "Where are you?" I shouted, hoping my voice would carry through the silence. "I'm here," the voice replied, this time with a sense of urgency. I turned, scanning the dimly lit forest. The shadows seemed to pull back, revealing a narrow path that I hadn't noticed before. There was a flicker of light at its end, a weak glimmer, but it beckoned me. Without thinking, I sprinted down the path, dodging branches and overgrown roots. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, but I pushed the terror aside. Just as I thought I would make it, the growl erupted again, mixed with the low hum of the voice. "Don't go!" I skidded to a halt, caught off guard. The whisper softened, and in that moment, I realized the voice was not just a call for help. It was a warning. Before I could process what was happening, the ground beneath me shifted. I stumbled into a hollow, hidden under the cover of leaves. Darkness engulfed me once more, and as I hit the ground, I felt the weight of something cold and hard beneath me. The pendant I had picked up, but this time the feeling was different. It pulsed with energy, as though responding to something deeper in the woods. I opened my mouth to scream, but the darkness swallowed my sound. I was no longer sure what was chasing me, but whatever it wasn't done with me yet. I looked up just in time to see that familiar shadow loom over the hollow. The chase was far from over. I lay there, heartbeat echoing in my ears, staring up at the looming shadow. It was almost mesmerizing in a horrifying way. The pendant felt warm under my palm, and for a moment, everything else faded. I could hear my breath, rough and uneven. I couldn't face the figure above me, but I couldn't look away either. Suddenly it shifted. I felt the ground tremble slightly as it moved in closer. I had to get out of here. The hollow was stifling, and I felt a surge of panic. Grabbing the pendant tightly, I rolled away from where the shadow loomed and crawled deeper into the overgrown thicket. Then I heard a low growl, not from the figure, but from someplace deeper in the woods. It sounded like an animal, but it felt wrong. The air was thick with anticipation, and I knew I needed to make a choice. Run further into the woods and risk getting lost, or face whatever was lingering in the darkness. The whisper returned, more insistent now. "Help me. Please." The voice twisted in my gut, a mix of fear and empathy. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but as I glanced back, I saw the faint outline of a child, a small figure, just beyond the shadows that tangled with the trees. "Are you hurt?" I called, voice trembling despite my intent. "Not me, him. He's going to hurt you." The voice was urgent, direct. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a simple plea for help. It was a warning about the shadowy thing still hunting me. I hesitated again, my heart racing. I didn't want to let anyone down. But how could I trust a voice that came from such despair? Before I could decide, the growl resounded again, louder this time, shaking the leaves. The shadow above me shifted, its form becoming clearer, more defined. It was not just a figure, but something monstrous, blending the aspects of a human and some dark creature. The glinting object it held could only be more dangerous than I had imagined. Every instinct told me to run, so I turned once more, scrambling through the underbrush. The path that had opened before me was now overgrown and treacherous. I pushed past branches, adrenaline fueling my flight. The growl was closer, roaring like a creature cornered. Then I stumbled into a clearing. Moonlight broke through the canopy, illuminating a strange stone altar at the center. A jagged slab covered in symbols that pulled at my memory, familiar yet unrecognizable. I felt the pendant grow warmer, almost vibrating in my grip. Before I had time to understand, I saw the figure of the child standing at the edge of the clearing, tears streaking his dirt-smudged face. "You need to leave. It's coming for you." My breath caught again, and before I could ask what he meant, I heard the rush of movement behind me, the shadows bolting from the trees like a predator caught in the light. The figure was coming. I backed toward the altar, clutching the pendant tightly. I was running out of options. Then it hit me, the whispers, the pendant, the altar, it all felt connected somehow. As the growl erupted again, sharp and close, I realized it was my last chance to understand what was happening. I couldn't just run anymore. I had to confront it. I stepped forward, determined to face the shadow, and that's when everything shifted once more. The symbols on the stone began to glow, pulsing with the same rhythm as the pendant in my hand, and all I could do was stare as fear gripped me tightly. What had I awakened? The ground shook again, this time more violently as the shadow lunged toward me. I dropped the pendant and stumbled back, my hand slipping from the cool stone surface of the altar. The symbols on it flared with a blinding light just as the figure stepped into the clearing. It was worse than I imagined. Its eyes glowed like embers, filled with a mix of hunger and sorrow that made my skin crawl. The thing held something sharp and jagged, a weapon infused with darkness. I felt my breath stutter. This was no mere creature. It was something ancient bound to this place, born from the fears of all who had wandered too deep into the woods. "You shouldn't have come here." The child's voice trembled, echoing in my ears. "You're in danger." Before I could ask how he knew, the shadow lunged again. Instinct kicked in, and I scrambled back toward the altar, where the symbols pulsed brighter than ever. I had no plan, no idea how the two were connected, but I had to do something. The pendant lay a few feet away, its glow faint but persistent. As I reached for it, the growl resonated again, a low warning. I could see the tension ripple through the creature. It hesitated, as if the light from the altar had a hold on it. But it was only for a moment. The shadows shifted, and suddenly the growl escalated into a blood-curdling roar. "Move!" the child screamed. "Now!" That jolted me into action. I lunged for the pendant, grasping it tightly in my hand. The instant it made contact, a surge of heat coursed through me, a strange connection igniting between the stone and the pendant. The glowing symbols intensified, enveloping me in a warm light. I felt a jolt of power, a defensive energy. The shadow recoiled as if burned, but it was still advancing. I looked back at the child, confusion and fear battling within me. "What are you?" I yelled. "Why is it after you?" "I'm trapped," the child replied, eyes wide with urgency. "And you're part of the key to setting me free, but if you don't fight, it will claim you both." I watched the shadow take another step, its form writhing and twisting, as if trying to break free from the chains of the dark forces it was tied to. I could sense my own fear dropping into bravery, ignited by his words and the pulsing energy around me. In that split second of clarity, I knew I had to act. I raised the pendant high, the symbols on the altar flowing with energy, fusing with the glowing light around me. I felt the fear drain away as determination filled the empty spaces in my mind. The shadow screeched, a sound that rattled my very bones. It lunged again, but this time I could see its movements slow. In that moment, the ground beneath our feet began to tremble, and I sensed the power shifting. With a defiant scream, I shouted, "Enough! I'm not afraid of you!" The glow surged brighter, pulsing in rhythm with my heart. The darkness surrounding the shadow hesitated, confused and uncertain. But just as I thought I had the upper hand, the ground rumbled louder and everything went silent. A sudden stillness fell, leaving nothing but the haunting echoes of the growl reverberating in the air. I blinked, searching for the child, but he had stepped back into the shadows of the woods. "Wait, come back!" I called after him. Then everything shifted again. The air grew colder, a thick fog creeping into the clearing, suffocating the light. That's when I saw it. The ground beneath the altar was cracking, a dark void opening wide, pulling everything toward its depths. The void gaped wide like a yawning maw ready to devour me whole. My heart raced, the warmth of the pendant contrasting sharply with the icy grip of fear wrapping around me. I was standing on the brink of something terrifying, an abyss that promised to swallow me and everything else into the dark. I stumbled back, the pendant steady in my grip, its light flickering as if sensing my rising panic. I could feel the tug of the void, as if it was trying to pull me closer. "What do I do?" I whispered to myself, desperate for an answer. The child's voice rang in my mind. You're part of the key. But what did that mean? I looked at the creature, still lurking at the edge of the light. It seemed affected by the void as well, eyeing it with a mix of fear and anger. I took a deep breath and shouted, "What are you?" The words spilled out before I realized. "I need to know." The shadow hesitated, the embers in its eyes flickering. It didn't advance, but it didn't retreat either. The air was tense, thick with uncertainty, and I felt a strange pull toward the altar. The symbols carved into its stone flashed brighter, responding to my need for clarity. "Give me a reason to trust you," I yelled, feeling foolish for speaking to a creature made of darkness. "What do you want?" For a moment there was silence. Then, like distant thunder, a voice emerged from the shadow. "I am bound by what lies below. I am the guardian of the darkness." My skin prickled at its words. "If you are to free the boy, you too shall face the depths." At the mention of the boy, I looked over my shoulder, but he was gone, lost to the fog creeping into the clearing. "No, don't leave me." My voice was tinged with desperation. The shadow shifted, and within it, I could see shapes moving, faces twisted in what seemed like pain and longing. "He is hidden from your sight, but the pendant is your lifeline." As the ground quaked again, my gaze flicked back to the void. I swallowed hard. "What do I need to do?" I shouted, hoping for any guidance. "Channel your fear. Let it guide the light. Only then can you traverse the shadows and reach him," the creature growled, its voice deep and resonant. I felt a tremor of panic surge through me again, but I forced myself to focus. The pendant pulsed steadily in my hand, and I closed my eyes, centering myself. I had to believe in the power within me. I thought of the boy, trapped and alone, and my heart swelled with a fierce resolve. I raised the pendant high once more and closed my eyes, concentrating on the warmth radiating from it. "If I'm to make it through this, I won't let fear control me," I spoke firmly. The ground began to shake even more violently as the void opened wider. Stones cracked and splintered apart, sending debris flying. Suddenly the fog thickened, fading the clearing from view. I felt it wrap around me like a heavy cloak. Panic rose in my throat. "No!" I shouted, fighting it. "What's happening?" Then came a chilling realization. The whispers from the void grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. I was losing my grip on the reality around me. But just as I felt myself slipping into despair, the pendant flared bright, bathing me in warmth. At that moment I caught a glimpse of a hand, small and pale, reaching out from the shadows in the darkness. "Help me!" It was the boy's voice, echoing through the tumult. I took a step forward, closing the distance, feeling both fear and a fierce determination to save him. But before I could respond, the ground beneath me roared, and then everything plunged into darkness. The darkness wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket, and for an instant I thought I was lost forever. The air shifted, cool and damp, and I felt weightless. My stomach churned as if I were falling. Then, just as quickly, there was a jolt, and I hit the ground hard. I gasped, the oxygen returning like a rush. With my heart pounding, I scrambled to my feet. I was no longer standing at the altar. Instead, I found myself in a cavern. Stalactites hung overhead, dripping with water. The pendant had dimmed but still glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows on the rocky walls. "Where am I?" I muttered, trying to control my breathing. The boy's voice lingered in my mind, urging me to move. I squinted into the darkness, searching for any sign of him. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned, but it vanished before I could grasp what I'd seen. Just shadows, I told myself, but panic clawed at my insides. I could feel the cave shifting, the walls whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. I took a step forward. "Hello?" My voice echoed, swallowed by the vastness around me. "Is anyone there?" Silence answered, making my skin crawl. As I walked deeper into the cavern, I stopped to examine the walls. Strange symbols were carved into the stone, similar to those on the altar. I traced my fingers over a couple, feeling electricity dance beneath my touch. Each symbol pulsed faintly, as if alive. Suddenly the cavern shook violently. Dust fell from above, and I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance. Just then I heard the boy's voice again. "Help!" Panic surged through me. "Where are you?" I shouted, but only the echoes replied. I felt my resolve starting to waver. "This is insane," I yelled at the darkness, my voice rising in pitch. "Show yourself!" But nothing emerged, and the weight of isolation pressed down on me. Then a chilling laugh echoed, bouncing off the walls. It felt wrong, cruel. My pulse raced as I searched for the source. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The laughter stopped, and the air around me grew thick. I felt the temperature drop sharply. My breath turned into mist as a figure stepped into the light. It wasn't the boy. It was a creature, tall and skeletal, cloaked in shadows. It had hollow eyes that glowed with malicious light. "You've entered my domain," it hissed, each word dripping with disdain. "And now, you will find your fears realized." My heart sank and I tightened my grip on the pendant, its light flickering weakly, as if sensing my terror. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It took a step closer, the shadows twisting around it. "Your fear is a feast," it purred, "and your quest is only the beginning." A chill coursed through me as I realized this was no ordinary challenge. I had stumbled into something more, something dark, and I wasn't just fighting for the boy anymore. "I won't give in," I declared, my voice stronger this time. But as I stood my ground, the ground trembled again. With a lurch, something shifted at the edge of the darkness. A new sound, an anguished cry pierced through the air, desperate and pained. Then I saw it, the boy's face illuminated by the pendant's weak light. His eyes were wide with fear, trapped just out of reach. "Help me!" he cried, and I felt my heart shatter at the sight. I took a step forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But as I did, shadows surged around me, closing in. In that moment I realized I was not alone, and the depths were still waiting to claim me. The darkness constricted around me, the figure looming ever closer, its hollow eyes gleaming with the promise of despair. But the boy's face, his terrified expression, was enough to stoke a fire deep within me. I couldn't abandon him, not now. I tightened my grip on the pendant, feeling its warmth pulse like a heartbeat, urging me forward. "Stop!" I shouted, a surge of defiance washing over me. The creature paused, its sinister laughter echoing in the void. "You think you can break me with fear?" I challenged, forcing myself to take one step closer. Behind me, the cavern walls shuddered as if they were echoing my doubts, my insecurities, but I wouldn't yield to that darkness. The boy's cry resounded in my ears again, louder and more desperate, as if he sensed my wavering resolve. "I'm here," I yelled back, fighting against the creeping dread that threatened to consume me whole. "I'm coming for you." The creature laughed again, and with that harsh sound it lunged forward, extending long, shadowy fingers toward me. The coldness radiated from its form made my skin crawl. "If you come closer, it will only make the end more painful," it taunted, venom dripping from its words. But I felt the pendant growing hotter, empowering me in ways I couldn't comprehend. As I raised it high, the soft glow expanded. At least a part of me believed it would push back the darkness. I took in a deep breath, drawing strength from somewhere deep inside. "You don't own me," I asserted, defiance strengthening my voice. "I will break this cycle." A gust of wind whipped through the cavern, swirling around the creature. It faltered for a moment. Uncertainty creased its shadowy form, and I seized the opportunity. With one fierce lunge, I dashed toward the boy, desperate to close the distance. "Stay away!" the creature hissed, throwing forth tendrils of darkness, grasping at my ankles, seeking to draw me back. But I lunged instead toward the boy's voice, feeling the weight of his fear drive me forward. The pendant blazed brightly as I approached the boy, illuminating the path through the shadows. "Hold on!" I shouted, extending a hand toward him. My voice broke through the oppressive darkness for an instant, and I could see him reach out, desperation written all over his face. "I can't hold on much longer." His small hand was almost within my grasp, and I felt the energy of the pendant surge in response to his plea. But the shadow had reformed, blocking the path. "You're too late," it snarled, movements fluid as it attempted to intercept. "Your fear will seal your fate." "No!" I yelled, grounding my resolve in the light emanating from the pendant. "I'm not afraid anymore." The words came from a place deep within, a well of courage that felt unyielding. In that moment of clarity, I began to chant the symbols etched deep into the stone around me, those ancient marks calling forth the power locked away in that pendant. "I command you to recede. I urge you to leave us be." Each phrase resonated within the cavern, and slowly I felt the shadows retract. The pull of the void weakened around me. The boy's grip wavered closer to my reach. "Almost there," I encouraged him, taking another decisive step, feeling exhilaration rise in me as the shadows shrank further back. But with a furious bellow, the creature leapt at me, dark tendrils reaching for my heart. "You cannot escape!" It roared, long fingers stretching, desperation lacing its voice. I felt an icy chill seep through my clothes, paralyzing my limbs. With everything I had, I flung the pendant forward towards the creature, shouting, "You have no power here!" The moment it made contact, the connection flared into a burst of light that surged forth, enveloping everything in its path. The creature shrieked, attempting to shield itself, but the radiant energy illuminated every dark corner in the cavern. In that blinding flash, I saw the boy, his hand reaching for mine, and without hesitation, I seized him, pulling him toward me with everything I had. In the frenzy of light, we collided, and at that moment, the darkness cracked like glass, splintering away. The scream of the creature reverberated in my ears as I pulled the boy against me, and we spun through the release. Reality twisted and reeled, and suddenly, we were falling, not into darkness, but through shimmering light. When we landed, the air felt warm and comforting. I blinked against the sunlight, squinting and realizing we were safe, sprawled on grass beneath a blue sky. I bolted upright, heart racing, looking around. "Where are we?" the boy asked, eyes wide and bewildered. I glanced around, a wave of relief washing over me. We were back at the campsite, the sounds of the forest alive around us. The chilling darkness was gone, evaporating like a fleeting nightmare. But still, a lingering shiver ran through me. I think we're safe," I said, though uncertainty knotted in my gut. But there were shadows lingering at the edges of my memory, questions still unanswered. I looked at the boy. "Are you all right?" He nodded, his face pale but unbroken. "I wasn't alone, you came for me." I smiled back at him, a bittersweet warmth weaving into my relief. But from the corner of my eye, shadows danced between the trees. Did we truly escape? Or was this just the beginning? I shook my head, trying to rid myself of doubt. I still think about that camping trip sometimes, wondering if the woods are still haunted by that darkness, or if I just imagined it all. I haven't gone back. Perhaps some mysteries are best left unsolved. One question remains. What truly lies behind the shadows of Pine Hill? I don't have the courage to find out again.